And welcome back to Stylex Studio, and it's class number 6 in the Photoshop for Beginners tutorial. And in this tutorial we'll be focusing on the crop tool, a small tool but a very handy and powerful tool, very useful tool. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into Photoshop. Okay, so let's open up our Photoshop. Crop tool. It's this tool here. As you hover your cursor or your mouse over this tool, it should say crop tool, and you'll see the letter C for Charlie within the brackets, and that's just a shortcut key for that tool. For example, currently my move tool is highlighted, so if I wanted to go to crop tool quickly, I can press the letter C and it'll take me straight into my crop tool. As you can see, the crop tool has been highlighted. Okay, or the other way would be just to hover my mouse over the crop tool and then left click down, and that highlights my crop tool and I'm in the crop tool. The crop tool itself brings its own options, which are up here. But before we move on to these options for the crop tool, let me just make a few things clear for you guys. You've got 8 points within the crop tool within the image. So when you highlight, so for example, if I move off, the crop tool disappears, and once I click on my left click down on my crop tool and make sure it's active, it will give me 8 points. Now top left, there's a little point there, as you can see. Bottom left, there's another little point in the corner here. Bottom right, there's another point there in the corner, and then top right, there's another point in the corner here. You also have 4 extra points. I'm not too sure if you can see them on this video, but there's a little protruding point in the middle of the image here on the right side, another bit there, another point, sorry, there on the top of the image, middle of the image, on the left side in the middle of the image you've got another little protruding point there, and another little point here. Okay, keep in mind the corner points you can move in any direction, okay, to get your crop right. Okay, and same thing for here, you can move it in any shape, size, and you can give it, okay. So however, the 4 middle points, these points here, you can only move them in certain directions. So the one on the left side, should we say the middle left side, I can only move it inwards and outwards. If I try to move it upwards or downwards, it will not do anything. Okay, I can only move this point inwards or outwards. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Same thing would apply for my point on the right. I can only move it inwards and outwards, but I can't move it upwards or downwards. Okay, so the crop will only move inwards or outwards, or left or right. And same thing would apply for these top point and the bottom point. So the top point, I can only move my crop downwards or upwards. Okay, I can't move it to the left or the right. Okay, so now that the point concepts on the crop should be clear in your head, let's move on to the options that it brings, the tool actually brings with it. First and foremost, you have this box here which says height and width resolution times resolution, which is what we work with. You have ratio, you can actually insert the ratios in here. You can have the original. Now with the original, what all that actually is if you look at the size of the image, it's 2304 pixels by a height of 1536 pixels. No matter what I do to this crop, it will maintain that ratio for me. Okay, whatever the original image was, it will maintain that original image ratio for me. So just make sure that you know that you're on the right preset when you work with your crops. 1 by 1 is obviously a square. Okay, so you got a ratio of 1 by 1. I mean, I can create that, say 2 by 1, it will give me a rectangle, but 1 by 1 will give me a square. And this size are normally used for, say, Instagram. And there's some more presets in there. The only way you're going to find out is by actually working through this. That should be quite clear in your head. Next thing is, let's have a look. I want to move on to the grids. Rule of thirds. I have this image. I'm on crop. I've got my crop tool active, ruler thirds. Now when I try to crop it, it will give me 3 columns and 3 rows. 1 column, 2 column, 3 column. 1 row, 2 rows, and 3 rows. Now you see these intersecting points. This is where the rule of third comes into play. It's normally used in photography and cinematography. Just to give you a rough idea, this is the original image. Okay, let's fit it to screen. This is the original image as taken by the photographer. Now, for example, if I wanted to apply the rule of thirds, I can either have my subject or whatever product or subject I have and place it on these intersecting lines. As long as my subject is on this intersecting point here, and say for example this is the crop I need, this is what we've cropped, this is the original. Okay, you see the difference? It just changes the perspective of the image. And let's have a look. Go back to the original. Same thing would apply on the other side. Say for example if I wanted my subject on the left bottom, now that my subject is on the intersecting points, almost on both intersecting points, it should give me a very decent image. As you can see, this is fit to screen and it's giving me a different perspective of that original image. So having your subject on those crossing points, those 4 crossing points, it's more, they say, the theory is that the image is more pleasing to the eye once you place your subject or subject on those crossing points. And hopefully that concept of using rule of thirds is quite clear in your heads. Moving swiftly on to the next option, which is delete crop pixels. Okay, now say for example I have this image and I have delete crop pixels not ticked or unchecked. Okay, and I move my crop to a size that I need. Say for example I need it this size. Okay, now that I've got my trainers, joggers, sneakers, whatever you want to call them, cropped, and I commit or confirm, I can press this tick up here, or I can also hit enter on the keyboard, but I prefer using this here, so I'll left click on this and there's my crop. If I fit it to size, there you go. Okay, now this is the crop. Now say for example I've got my crop wrong and I wanted to get a bit more of the stone in, or a bit more of the shoe, or a bit more of the this bit here on this side. Because my delete crop pixels was unchecked and not ticked, my original image is still in the background. Now say I wanted to get it at this point. Now because it was unchecked and my image is still at the background, I can still move and maneuver my crop to where I need it to be. Okay, so hopefully that concept is clear when it's unchecked. Now, having the delete crop pixels ticked, once you get to your crop, say for example we've cropped it to this size here, keep in mind, once you commit or confirm that crop by pressing left clicking on this arrow, on this tick, or hitting the enter key on your keyboard, everything outside that crop will get deleted. Okay, so for example if I was to commit, okay, I've got my, if you think that you've got your crop wrong and you need to add a few more bits, say for example I wanted to add a bit more of the rock in, look what would happen. It will not give me the original image. Why? Because the original image has been deleted. Okay, so keep that in mind, checked or unchecked. So let's go back to the original image again. So make sure you know that if you don't need it, tick it and then you'll get the image that you require. If you're not too sure about the crop, make sure it's unchecked so you can at least reuse or add to the crop that you need. Okay, right, okay, let's move on to the next bit, which is content aware. A very useful tool, or it can be. For example, say if I was to move, if I wanted extra space to the side of the image, and I click here, what the system will do is it will give me this transparent extra bit that I selected. If I confirm at this point, it will just keep it as a transparent, and I can actually add wherever I need to. Okay, but now say for example, if I have this ticked, but I want to keep the contrast, the colors from the original image. So once I move my crop, say I want this much extra of the image. Now I've got my left click down and I've dragged my mouse on that middle point here outwards to a point that I need my image to be that size, that crop, should we say, yeah? Once I release my left click, once again it will give me a transparent layer, the extra from the original image. Okay, now because my content aware was ticked, once I commit or confirm by left clicking on this tick here or by clicking enter, the system will analyze. It was maybe a second or two depending on the speed of your laptop or your PC. The system will analyze the image and it will add and fill in that extra space that you created from the image. So original image was this was the content aware function that I used. It actually took part of the image in the vicinity of the extra bit and filled the image. So hopefully you've understood the concept of content aware as well within the crop tool now. Okay, so let's go back to the original image. Right, so okay, we've covered content aware, delete cropped, and pixels, you should know what that is by now, and the grids, my advice would be to leave it on rule of thirds. Now we have one point left, which is the straighten tool. Now if you look carefully, the horizon is slightly tilted. Okay, for example, I wanted to straighten this out, so all I need to do is make sure the straighten is highlighted, or the spirit level is highlighted, and go to a point where the horizon is, left click down, holding the left click down, move it across to where you believe should be the line of the horizon. You can go all the way across to the other side of the image, or you can just do a part of it and it should work out. Okay, so I believe the horizon line should be somewhere around here. Now once I've got to my point and it's telling me the system is calculating from this image is 3.9 degrees. I release my left click. Now this is the image with the straight horizon. As you can see, the horizon is going a lot straighter. And if I show you the original image, straighten image. Okay, so this is how the straighten tool works. Okay, so hopefully you should have a better understanding of the crop tool now and the options that it brings with it and how to use them. The more you use the crop tool, the easier it will become. As a photographer myself and a cinematographer, I use the crop tool quite a bit. Okay, I crop my images, I crop my videos, and I use it quite a bit to make sure I get the right composition that I need. So it's a very useful tool. Okay, so hopefully you found this interesting, and if you did, please hit the subscribe button, the like button, hit the bell icon, and remember, practice makes perfect. So until the next time, we'll see you in class number 7. Take care of yourselves. Adios, amigos.